Join me every month for the inspiration to find your finish line. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Find Your Finish Line. I'm your host, Mike Riley, the podcast that's not only about you finding your finish line at a race or an event, but every day in life. We've always got to find those finish lines. And I talk to people that have jumped over a lot of hurdles through their lives and are still jumping over hurdles to be able to find their next finish line. I'll introduce my guests in just a second, but again, I want to talk about Pillar Performance, a micronutrition company with their triple magnesium powder. I was introduced to it at IRONMAN New Zealand last December. They said, Mike, take it at about 30 minutes before you go to bed. It'll help you sleep a lot better and help with your recovery on your workouts. Well, I was a little skeptical. I was on the road. I didn't want to take it then. I get home. I start taking it about 30, 40 minutes before I go to bed. I cannot believe the type of sleep I am getting with this product. Thus, the better sleep, the deeper sleep, the better the recovery. Triple magnesium. You can find it on thefeed.com. They gave me a code too, MIKE23, Mike23, and you'll get 15% off. You got to try this product. Triple magnesium by Pillar Performance out of Australia, now available in the U.S. on the feed. Thank you very much, guys, for turning me on to that product. I love it. I've never really jumped into the subject. As you know, over the past 2.5 years, I've had a lot of professionals and age groupers on in the endurance sports business, and we've talked about all kinds of things, but I've never jumped into dementia, Alzheimer's, which seems to affect so many of us because we know people in our lives or have known people in our lives that have suffered from dementia and Alzheimer's. My guest today is one of those. He's 54 years old out of Florida. His name's Dan Jaworski, and he was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, told by his doctor, likely to lead to dementia. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate you having me.
You know, when I wrote this script, and I just said that just now, I just can't even imagine you sitting, and you're 54 years old. It's not like you're 82 years old.
Yeah.
Sitting in the doctor, you were 54 when the diagnosis happened.
Right.
Sitting in the doctor's office, and those words came across the table to you. What the heck went through your mind?
Yeah. Actually, I wasn't actually in the office. I was out for a run that day.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So I'm out for a run. I get the call, and my doctor drops the bomb. Said, I'm sorry, but this is what you have. And because the testing process had gone on for, it's a long process, about 9 months, I kind of knew what was coming. But I even think when you know what's coming, but when you hear those words, it actually dropped me to my knees at that moment. And you're going to find this a very strange story, but it kind of links with you guys, is that the first thought that came to my mind after hearing that was Ironman Kona. And because it's always a bucket list for me, and I'm not I'm a subpar member of the male species, not to mention an athlete. So I figured I would get to Kona at age 75 when everybody stopped doing it, and hopefully I'd be the only guy in my age group. So that was my hope. And you may know this or may not, but so once you get diagnosed, the numbers 3, 20, and 8 become very relevant, meaning your life expectancy is a minimum of 3, a max of 20, and an average of 8. So I was doing the math in my head. I was 54, and I add 20 at 74. I'm short. So I got to find a way to get in now. I got to find a way to do this thing now. And so it was a long process of getting there. And so what I did is I actually I got my phone out after the doctor called, and I called up Ironman, which you guys are in Florida. And of course, nobody answers their phone. So I just started leaving messages and voicemails, and I must have left 30 messages.
Wow. Good for you. Good for you.
It's like, okay, I really want to do this. And then long story short, got in contact, got it all set up, and after 3 years of COVID delays, finally got my shot this last October.
And you were able to do that through the Ironman Foundation, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I'm so grateful for the Ironman Foundation for giving me that opportunity.
Yeah, we'll talk about Kona last October and your race there. You know, one of the first questions, and I failed to do that on the podcast, is I always ask my guests, "Hey, did you get a workout in today? What was your workout today?"
Actually, my workout is my mom is moving, and my mom and dad are moving out of their house. So I spent the entire about 10 hours moving stuff into the dumpster, out of the house, and all that. So I just took a shower from that. I drove back here really quickly, and so that was my workout. I'm going to go for a run though after this.
Well, I tell you, you know how many people out there. I just had this angst because I've helped friends and family move. That is worse than going for a 100-mile bike ride and backing it up with a 20-mile run. And I'm sure everybody out there agrees. Moving someone else, even loved ones, is a pain.
I was ready to go there with a tank of gas and a match and light that thing on fire. I have to go back tomorrow too. So, but I'm smiling now, but I wasn't earlier.
Well, you're out on that run. You receive the diagnosis.
Yeah.
All those things go through your head.
Yeah.
But Dan, you kind of made a conscious decision at that time, almost immediately, didn't you? What was that?
Okay, so I did two things. The first thing I did was I called the Ironman, and the second thing that I did really was I went home and I told my wife, and I said that I'm getting a tattoo, and it's going to say Carpe Diem, which is Latin, as you probably know, for seize the day. Is that no matter what happens, I am going to make the best of every moment I have. And so that was kind of my mindset right away. This is, I'm going to figure out what this is, and I'm going to try to attack it in any way I can. I just got such a great family and good friend group. I want to keep rolling with it. So that was
how'd your wife take the news? Your family take the news?
I think it's because we didn't really know a ton about it at the time. Of course, I think it was really hard for anybody to get that. She's a champ, and we've been a great team. We're high school sweethearts, and so yeah. I mean, we're strong. We're strong together.
Well, let's give us a little education. So many people have known people with dementia and Alzheimer's, and talk to us about what the difference is between the two. Dementia comes first, then Alzheimer's, which is a disease. So kind of explain what it really is to us now that you've done all this research.
Right. It depends on where you are in it, but like the early stages would be you're forgetting something. So in my case, we had been on a family trip over in Thailand in late 2008, right around Christmas time in 2018. And my family had noticed me asking like the tour guide the same question over and over again. They hadn't said anything to me. So I didn't at that point I thought everything was good. And then when we got back to Florida, my wife and I were driving to a Rollins College, which is 2 miles from my house. And I've been to that college hundreds of times. I'm a big basketball fan, and I'm friends with the coach there. And I looked at her and say, "Where are we going?" And she said, "To Rollins." I said, "I know that, but how do we get there?" That was my kind of Houston, we have a problem moment. That's, other people I've talked to that have gotten this disease, they've known it because they were giving a speech and they couldn't speak. So it's a little bit different for that. So in my case, I didn't even notice that I was having these issues. And at that point, from there, I started, I went to the doctor, and what the doctor said, and very early in that process, the doctor said to me, "If you have a bucket list, start doing it, and you're going to hope for the best and prepare for the worst." So I knew at that point, like, this is serious. And so we started going down the rabbit hole.
What about the issue and situation with, it's been 4 years now. Have you seen much of a difference in yourself, or has your family?
I'm sure that my wife would give you, would see some of it. What I've done is really try. I have 4 controllables, Mike. I have diet. It's really exercise, diet, brain engagement, and sleep. And I'm trying to give an Ironman effort in those 4 categories of what I can control. I can't control the rest of it, but I can pound the bejesus out of those 4 things. And
I
so
love
I
that.
am going super hard in those categories.
I love that.
So I don't think anybody will work harder than me. And so that if we're outworking it as possible, I got a shot. So, and I just feel like for me, like the whole exercise component is so important. That's what kind of the whole Ironman thing is like. When I'm doing all those things, swim, biking, and run, I feel like I'm counter punching, that I'm ahead of the game, that I'm winning. So that's why it's just so important to me, and that's why the Ironman the whole thing has been just such a blessing.
Well, and I've heard people speak of having a disease, and they actually talk back at it or talk to it, or I'd be screaming at it, yelling at it. Do you do that?
I do.
What do you say? What do you do?
I do. I talk a little smack. I do. I say, I tell it not today. I tell it I'm still standing. I'll give it the Dikembe Mutombo finger wag. He was the greatest shot blocker in the NBA. I tell it to get that weak stuff out of here. Maybe don't quite say stuff, a little.
Mm-hmm. That's okay.
I'm conceding nothing. And I told my doctor after when I got the diagnosis, he talked me the diagnosis. And the next time I saw him, I said, "Doctor, there's always an outlier. Somebody's going to be the first one, and it's going to be me, and you can write the book." And he gave me the perfect response. He grunted. That was his sole entirety of his response, which I'm going to tell you my belief that means is doctor speak for right on, bro. I know you can do this.
Well, that's fantastic. I like hearing that. So when you're diagnosed, you're down the road a bit.
Yep.
When you look up dementia and Alzheimer's and you Google it, oh my gosh, it's nothing but medication. Nothing really proactive except medication. Do they have you on meds or less meds because of your type of lifestyle?
Right. There is really only one thing that's out there, Aricept, and there's I can't remember what the generic version of that is. There's been nothing in the last 20 years. The drugs that have come out have made you worse or done nothing for you. So there has not been anything on that. There's a few glimmers out there right now with something that's one of the drugs that's come out. We'll see on that. So I'm hopeful on that because there's a ton of money. The people at the Alzheimer's Association are advocating, and there's a lot of really smart people working on this. But I'm gonna try to solve this myself. I mean, and if any of those levers work, then I know this from the time I go to Mayo in Jacksonville, and what my doctors told me. She said that if the degrees is progressing, it's progressing really slowly with you, which is about as good as you can get in my case. And I attribute that to the whole exercise, diet regime, brain engagement, and all that. I'm eating with my opposite hand. I'm trying to do all these kinds of things, all these brain games, you name it. I'm really pushing myself on all that.
Yeah, the old jumbos and crossword puzzles and
exactly
all that stuff, keeping the brain. We need to do that every day in life anyway. I mean,
right? Movement is medicine, as you know, right? I mean, and I think it's good for the gourd as well. So,
and plus, I truly believe, because I've seen it in action with the endurance sports family, the Ironman family, whoever it may be. When you have that support in your corner, it buoys you to boosts you up more than you can do yourself. Has that happened with you?
Yeah, right. I mean, the people my son is my coach. He's my coach, so that's been fun. He's been a 70.3 qualifier 3 times and was a college runner and all that.
Good.
So that's been a very cool aspect. And then I've got a really good crew of people here in Orlando that have been just fantastic. So when I got that tattoo that night, I told you that story about the tattoo.
Right. Carpe diem. Yeah.
Yeah. The Carpe Diem one. My wife asked me a question that night. This is the night of my diagnosis. She said, "Can I get one?" And I thought, I married the right woman. And she did. And then about a week or so later, my son and my daughter show up with a Carpe Diem tattoo. And of course, my son's like Adam Levine, where it covers half of his body.
Oh,
And then I had my training buddy, my Ironman training buddy, and his wife came over, and they had gotten inked up. So there's been a really lot of cool solidarity moments. And so I've got that kind of community of people you exercise with has been really important for me. And I've got just a great crew that we do the rides and the swims and the bikes, all that.
I love hearing that. I think it's vital in anybody's life to have a support group, especially when you're going through something like you're going through and you work out all the time. You got to,
Right.
you have to have company in the pain of the long rides on the hot summer days in Florida, for goodness sakes.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, you definitely.
So you had a few Ironmans under your belt, Dan.
I do.
And then you decided at that moment when you got the diagnosis, I've got to do Kona. Well, that came true in last October in 2022.
Yeah.
And through the Ironman Foundation. But there were, 142 others that were affected by Alzheimer's in the race. I did not.
Is that right?
know. Well, yeah, because, or was that the 142 people that you?
Oh, okay, yeah, no,
were
okay.
supporting?
So what I did, Mike, okay. I knew nobody with this disease, so I'm coming out of this, and a miracle happened. Is that so? My good friend that came over, my training buddy came over with his wife. And this was after I got diagnosed, and said, "You're going to get on social media." And I swore never ever to be on it. I was like the last holdout. I didn't know what I did. Don't talk to me about Facebook and all those things. And they said, "No, you got to do it because you're going to be able to find others like you."
Yeah.
And I was so grateful for that, because what I did is I started contacting other people on there, and so what I decided is I want to give these guys something. I want to do something. I want to serve them somehow. And I thought, well, I have this cool race. It has 140 miles. I'll dedicate each mile to someone that's like me fighting this thing, or someone that's lost their life. So I ended up with people all over the world, in Denmark, Australia, New Zealand, Caracas, Venezuela, and just people with interesting stories, people that have fought in wars, escaped domestic violence. One lady whose great-great-great-grandmother was a concentration camp survivor. And these are just, I've gotten to know them, and so we're friends. So I'm friends with people now on these on Instagram, but it's been a really powerful community. And actually, some of the people that I'd never met came to Kona and flew over there, and we're at the race that day.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember this, but you said it, because you said. When I was coming in, something about it looks like he brought the whole town with him, because I had all these people in purple that were screaming, because that's the color of Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. So we had a whole crew. My best friend from high school, my best friend from college. So there was just a lot of great solidarity moment there. My brand new grandchild was there. He was hanging with me in the swim chute for a while. So
I love that. Awesome. So was every mile? You actually came in contact with that many people, 142 people, and every mile was for someone.
Was to a different person. Yeah. I tried to memorize them all, but that didn't really work for me. But I have a video of it. My wife put down, which goes over each mile. I'll send it to you. If you want to take a look. It shows each person.
I'd love to see that. That's beautiful. That I didn't know that on race day. I mean, obviously I read a lot of bios. I didn't know that, but I'm glad I brought you in. I'm glad that all those family members were there for you. Hold on, everyone. We'll be right back after a message from our sponsors. Curad Performance Series, the official medical supplier of Ironman. Curad's far infrared kinesiology tape encourages faster recovery and enhanced performance. Don't let the aches and pains of everyday training and racing slow you down. Make sure you check out all the Curad products at Amazon.com, at Walmart, and Ironman.com. And let Curad help you find your finish line. So you talked about the numbers. You talked about the 3, the 8, 8 years, the average lifespan, 20 years, the longest with Alzheimer's. And to do Kona 20 years from now, you're going to be 74, 75 years old.
That's right.
And that is your goal, isn't
That
it?
is my goal, right? Yeah, I mean, because that's when they say I'm not going to make it. That's what the math says, and I'm saying I am going to make it. And I don't care who, if I like put in a basketball analogy. I don't care if I'm playing the Lakers or the Warriors. I'm not going to go into the game thinking I'm going to lose. I understand the odds and all the probabilities, but no one's going to work harder at it, and we'll see what happens. So.
Well, that is a beautiful goal. I mean, 20 years from now, but you got to realize
Can you
something,
come
Dan.
back and call the race?
Yeah, I knew you were gonna. Oh my gosh, Mike's gonna be there with in a wheelchair and an oxygen tank.
Well,
calling you
yeah.
in.
Maybe we'll both will be. So
But the interesting part about that, you say, well, I'll be 75 years old. Dan, I got to warn you, dude, everybody's like aging up, and the 70 to 80-year-old age group, they're like all studs.
I know.
I can't
know. It's
imagine
so
20
hard.
years from now.
Genetic mutants. It's just amazing.
I know.
I know the people at Kona. Oh my gosh, this last race, I was just watching those guys as we were going different directions on the bike when I saw them all the leaders, both male and female. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, they'll be close to your age group then. You got to watch out.
The kids will just be graduating college, right?
Well, you're not only taking care of yourself with this, and you've become an advocate, for the Alzheimer's Association, speaking to congressional and Senate leaders to try to help advance, the cause of it. Obviously, you always need that government support. What's been the progress there over the time that you've been involved?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the math of what has been going towards Alzheimer's, the Alzheimer's Association does an incredible job. And I can't think of the exact numbers, but the chart of how much is going into research is outstanding, is amazing. And I'm so grateful for that. They're still trying to get more because I do believe a lot of these diseases, diabetes, hypertension, heart, have some similarities that they can get some ancillary benefits to the other diseases as well. But it's really, it will get cracked. The question is it in my lifetime? And it really isn't important whether it is. To me, what's important is I got a grandson. I got another one coming. I want to draw the line in the sand at those guys, and just make sure that we do it. So that with enough time and money, we'll solve it. We have a lot of bright people in this country.
And I admire you and respect you for your words of saying, it's not about me and my lifetime. It's about passing it on to the kids and grandkids. So.
It's a really. I mean, Mike, do you have anybody in the family that has the disease or not? You don't
my mother passed of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, it can get really tough, and for many families, it's about a $400,000 drain, and it takes people out of the workforce, and it forces, children to become caregivers and kind of consume their lives as well. So there's a lot of it's like a grenade that kind of blows the family up.
And you're still working?
I am not right now. I am not. So my full-time job, I'm like a I'm like a professional triathlete with a few exceptions. I'm not very fast. Nobody follows me, and nobody says, "Oh crap, he's in the race" when I show up.
You know what? You're making everybody out there jealous. Hey, this dude gets to do the train all the time, for goodness sake.
I do. So yeah, it is, and it's keeping me sane. It really is, and yeah.
How are insurances treating it all on being able to cover?
So right now, the newest drug that's out there is just got reduced in half to, I think it's $26,000 a year.
Whew.
Right.
In half,
So
and that's half of what it used to be.
Yeah, it used to be, right, and that's with it being cut down into half. And so they're messing with the government right now. I don't know how that all works for how pharmaceuticals price the drugs, but they're going back and forth with the government entities to try to get that lowered. So,
no, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this thing will get solved. It's a function of time and effort, and there's a lot of other countries involved in these efforts, but nobody, it's kind of like Bill Gates and governments are the only people that can put any kind of serious dent into something like this.
Well, you mentioned I'll call them your 4 pillars of exercise, diet, brain engagement, and sleep.
Yep.
Diet is always on the endurance athlete's mind. Like, am I
Yeah.
eating the right stuff? Am I recovery and all that good?
Right.
Have you changed your diet
Yes.
and been educated about that? How it would help?
Yes, very, very much so. I mean, I was never really an unhealthy eater by any means, but I mean, I swear by the Mediterranean diet, so it's basically eating close to the vine, that's probably the best way to say it. So it's salmon, some chicken, and then lots of greens and fruits and vegetables, really. And I love it. I mean, it's really good. And yeah, sure. Would I like a pizza? Yes. Would I like ice cream? But I'll never have ice cream again. To me, I've got to, I kind of have to go all in to give, if I'm going to try to do this, I'm going to just go all in. And so I adopted that basically the day I got the news.
Dan, when you go back in for your checkups, is there some types of tests that the doctors do to see where your cognitive thinking is at?
There is. And I don't know when you go in, they'll usually give you this MOCA test, and there's 30 questions typically on them. They'll ask you to draw a clock. They'll ask you who the president is. Most of us don't even want to answer that question, no matter who's in office, right?
I don't go there on this podcast.
Sorry. Can we get some, anyway, but it's some of it's very simple, and then they'll ask a few math questions, and that's kind of like the very simplest one they'll do for people. And then the other ones are like 4-hour brain busters, where you'll have to read a story of a couple pages, and it'll say, Sarah's and Jane were going to the movies, where one was wearing blue shoes, one was wearing, and all these details, and then they'll ask you at the end of the stories, well, what color shoes was Sarah wearing?
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Everybody out there is thinking, I can't do that now.
Right. And I'm not a detail guy. I am a top down. I like big picture stuff. So it's like, I don't care what's the point of the story. And that's been challenging for me. But that when I had those tests, I knew that I was in trouble on them, because I had done so poorly at each one of them.
Wow. And I tell you, I'd have to read it 3-4 times and I'd finally get it. Yeah. That's just who I am.
It was humbling. It was humbling. I walked out of there thinking, I mean, this is an exam. I'm thinking, what's lower than an F, right? It was just, but you do what you can. Every day's a gift, and that's how I'm playing it.
Keep playing it, brother.
Yeah.
Have you had any conversations with family that have lost family members and gained any insight into that?
Lots of people that I've talked to. I mean, many of the people I talked to, their parents had died from it, and it's this community has so much pain and so much sadness, but there's beauty and strength in their struggle. It's such a sharing, caring community, so you learn. I think it's just the human condition, because there's really no answers right now. It's more about being supportive and trying to find ways to help fight the disease for our children's sake. It is really kind of what we're all banded on. So,
are there support groups for family members?
Yeah, there are. Sure, there's support groups for everything, and some of those are great, some of those are bad. My first experience with a support group was tough, though. To be honest, is that we had
tell us about it.
Yeah, so I just gotten diagnosed, and my wife and I go to a support group, and everybody else in the room is 30 years older than us. Okay, and they're couples. Mm-hmm. And each of the couples, the person with the disease stared out the window and was completely nonverbal, had lost the ability to speak. And so I'm sitting there with my wife, and we're both seeing the same thing. And I'm thinking, this is a bad preview. It was a bad movie preview for her. Like, this is a ghost of Christmas to come.
Wow.
So that was a tough moment. That was like, okay, this is serious. And so that makes me even more convicted to just try to pound the 4 things we keep talking about, exercise and diet and et cetera.
Are you still going to support groups, or?
I'm not going to that one. No.
Okay.
What I found is kind of my own tribe. So so with Alzheimer's Associations has an early advisory group. I'm on that, and that's kind of my buddies and so forth. So that's how I've been able to find other people like me and other people through Instagram with the whole Kona race. And so that's provided a lot of people, that we're in contact. Sometimes not that often, but just checking in.
Well, like all triathletes and endurance athletes, their calendar is scheduled according and where they're going to go according to the events they're going to do in the year. What do you've got on your calendar for the season, race wise?
Right. So give you a little bit of backstory. So my wife's been very patient through all this stuff, especially with the multiple years of Kona delay and just, me being gone all the time. So the night of the race, when we got back to the house, she informed me that now it is the year of Julie. And
so wait, the night of Kona 2020,
after the race, when I got back, okay, you celebrated, you've done all this stuff. Now it's the year of Julie, and it's starting today.
Good for her.
One day, and I got a few hours. Woke up the next day, and it's like all about her. So, and I'm happy to do that. So we're doing a lot of things. Okay, she's a type 1 diabetic. We've got we're going out to Big Sur to do a run coming up. Mm-hmm. We've got another bike ride coming up with the JDRF. Which is another one of the organizations for diabetes. I'm doing that. I don't have a try on my calendar yet, but I'm starting to scratch a lot. I'm starting to get the itch. So I'm trying to figure out which one to do.
Well,
so
I'm not.
I'm thinking about because when I attempted Utah and I got sick on the course, and that's the only Ironman I've ever not completed. So I'm either going to go do the half or the full, and Utah is kind of where I'm drifting.
Well, I've been married like 47 years, Dan, and I don't want to give you any marital advice.
I could use some.
But I would say, it's only we're at the beginning of the year. I'd push hard another 6 months of the year of Julie and try to get something on the calendar
at the end of the year.
At the end of the year, and say,
right. I'm going to tell her you said that, and I say, like, Mike, I have to listen.
No, you cannot.
Kind of you're my advisor. You're
She'd be calling me up. What'd you say to him?
Right? No. I'm going to tell her that when she gets home tonight that Mike said it's okay, so we can. It's not going to detract from it'll enhance the year of Julie, right? It'll make it better.
There you go. Make it to a beautiful location where she goes to,
right.
Of
her choice.
And I have another bit of advice. Spa day for Julie, okay?
Okay. Will do. Well done.
Age groupers go through a lot of things in their lives. Even though we do triathlon, we do swim, bike, and run, we have a lot of things that come along our way, and you have to keep that positive attitude. What kind of advice would you give to all your age group brethren out there?
Yeah. It was interesting because I told you about we were in that Thailand trip, and that's where they noticed all this stuff going on with me. But we'd met a monk there. This is just, it's a powerful thing for me. We met this young monk. He was born in Burma. His parents were killed. He was smuggled to Thailand by Thai monks. But he spoke 12 words to me that have really stuck and kind of made me think. And his words were this. He said, "All life is suffering. What are you going to do about it? All life is suffering. What are you going to do about it?" And as I'm going through this whole process of getting diagnosed, I just kept thinking, what is my response to this guy when I came back? And I came up with 3 things. And the first one is gratitude. Thank you, God, for the gift of today. I am me and I am grateful, meaning I'm here. And that's it. That's the gift. The second thing is impact. And I thought Martin Luther King said it best. He said, "Everybody can be great because everybody can serve." Mm-hmm. And I love those words. And the man is a genius. And so I'm trying to take that into the Alzheimer's community and to be of service to them, to be of service to my community, to my wife, and all the people that I care about, and just trying to make this place a better place. And the last one's adventure, which is basically doing these races and, counter punching back and living my best life. So that's kind of how I got through it.
Keeping those boxing gloves on, it's okay, Dan. You know what I mean? One of the last question I usually ask on Find Your Finish Line is called tri-table racing. It comes out of the Baja 1000 car racing through the Baja in Mexico. The racers get together. I have friends that race down there, and they get together and they sit around the table afterwards and reminisce about the event. They call it table racing. So I call this tri-table racing. So reminisce with us about an event. There's something that happened in an event that comes to your mind. So reminisce and try table race with us.
Okay. Well, I would say the end of Kona was incredibly powerful for me, because at that point I started off in the very back at this thing. I was in the second to the last swim group, and then of course the genetic mutants were behind me and trying to overswim me. But yeah, so that is I'm getting it's later. I'm getting there, getting to the finish line, and my daughter just shows up out there in the middle of the course, and I don't know how she even got out there. And so we had just this fantastic conversation, and she's turned into some amazing 100-miler racer. She just winning the first or second place in those.
Good for her.
And she just showed, we just had this really fantastic kind of personal moment that you just get. You don't always get when you're doing things, and something like this where she knew how important this was to me, and that was just fantastic. And so that happened, and then I get into the finish line, and I know you guys know Chris Nikich very well.
Yes.
And he lives very close to me, and we kind of got connected through social media. That was one other thing that happened with social media, is I got connected to him. And I thought he and his dad were leaving and weren't going to be there, because his race was the first one, and they were in there too. So I get into the finish line, and I'm getting hugs from my family and all that, and then Chris runs over and gives me one, and his dad, and so that was really cool. That was a really fun moment for me, because we had both kind of just found each other through this thing, and we only live a couple miles from each other.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, Chris, and he was partying hardy down there. I'll tell you what, when I went down there, it was high five, hugging. It was a great,
yeah. So that's, I mean, there's been so many good things that have happened. So, I wouldn't trade my life with anybody, disease and all. So.
Well, no. Dan, you're like you said, you're on social media. That's how people can find you. Can they ask you questions? You can go to Instagram, Dan Jaworski, message you any place else.
That's it, really. I mean, I'll give them my email if they want, or it doesn't really matter. But if you have any Alzheimer's thing, if I can be of help to you, I would love to be. I mean, I don't have the answers, but I'm very willing to share, and I'd love to help anyone if I could.
Well, that's very kind of you. And I think I've told athletes over and over again before they get in the water, you've got control over one thing and one thing only today, and that's your attitude.
Amen.
And Dan, I think, I truly believe your attitude is going to have you at that friggin' finish line 20 years from now, baby, in Kona when you're 75. And I'll hold you to this. You better win your age group, dude.
Right. Well, yeah. I think that's going to be, I think I got a shot at it that way. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for being on the podcast. It's all about education and inspiring others, and hopefully this will inspire others to battle the disease like you are with the boxing gloves on, talking smack every day.
Yeah, so grateful for the opportunity, and I want to send a special shout out to the IRONMAN Foundation, because that was I wouldn't have gotten in if it had been for that. So thank you so much.
And Dan, you spoke of the IRONMAN Foundation. As I said, I'm the ambassador captain, and I have to thank you from the bottom of my heart. People saw me with the rally towel at races over and over again, and then we auctioned it off to benefit the IRONMAN Foundation. And you, my friend, had the highest bid for my rally towel. And where's it hanging? Where's it at?
It is upstairs in my bike room. And I've got that thing on the wall, and I love having it there, because it's a incredibly motivating thing for me. And I tell you this, no matter what, I wasn't going to get outbid on that. And I was glad that it didn't go into the hundreds of thousands, or I would have probably tapped out, but I don't know. I would have to go and take a loan out to get that thing.
Well,
because I love the anything is possible motto. And so it's very inspiring for me.
Well, thank you very much for spending the thousands for that rally towel and having it in your workout room. Not a better place for it. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
So thanks again for being on the show. And thank you, everybody, for listening in to another edition of Find Your Finish Line. Remember, every day is a challenge, but it's a journey you always have to embrace. And then, guess what? You'll find your finish line. Take care, everybody. My warmest aloha.